Okay, so the first question I have about good CRM workflows is can you tell us why they're such a hidden feature in the CRM? Because they're not actually anything new.
Yeah, thanks, Steph. So that's right. Workflows have actually been part of the system since 2019, so they're not new at all. I guess the reason they're a hidden feature is because they're not something you can just go and use yourself out of the box. They're actually a tool set that's used by the team here at GoodCRM to kind of extend the functionality of people's CRM. So it's not something the average CRM user is going to stumble over, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, so good CRM users aren't able to just log into their CRM and start trying this out for themselves.
No, that's right. Though that isn't to say that getting started with workflows is difficult either. And we can often get basic workflows rolled out for clients within a week or two. So yeah, it's not a huge leap for people to make, but yeah, they can't just get in and stick in themselves.
Okay, so if someone is watching this webinar today and thinks a workflow could help them and their organization, what should they do next?
Just get in touch. So yeah, drop us a line by phone, email, help desk, and we'll just have a chat with you about your requirements and take it from there.
Okay, brilliant. So could you start by giving us just a really quick overview of what workflows are and what are they actually used for?
Okay, yeah. So if you've heard us talking about workflows, and we do mention them in the brochure and things like that, you've probably heard us talking about embedding processes into the CRM. So that's exactly it, really. Workflows allow us to build a process, and then a CRM user can be guided through that process step by step by the system.
So essentially, workflows are a way for the system to guide someone through a set process or a
Hmm.
set number of stages. Okay, so I know you're going to show us some examples, but I've got a couple of questions first.
Mhm.
So are workflows only used internally by people within your own organization? And my second question is, what are the benefits of using a workflow over just using the CRM on its own?
Okay, so yeah, workflows are often used by people in your organization, and that can be the typical way that this works. But they can also be used by outside stakeholders too. So that might be service users, members of a membership, people who are just members of the public that you're interacting with, or anything. So that's really useful. And to the second part of your question, so what are the benefits of workflows? Um, well, I think involving outside stakeholders is a major one. So we can open up in a really controlled way parts of your processes to be completed by people who are external to the organization. And then there are a whole range of benefits to using workflows. And I think importantly, and this goes for people inside your organization as well as people outside, because workflows are guided processes, they achieve a number of key things. So firstly, recording data in your CRM might include updating lots of different pieces of information in lots of different places. So typically, we might need to kind of decide what data needs to be recorded, where, when, by whom. We then maybe have to train staff that are going to complete all the information. And then we have to rely on those staff members to kind of remember to do everything all at the right time and in the right place. So with a workflow, we're able to kind of tie together all of those different tasks across different areas of the CRM. So maybe in your people, organizations, your records, events, put those all into a series of logical steps. And then any staff member that's using a workflow just has to step through the process, follow the instructions at each step. And the process not only kind of guides them through so they're not having to flit around, but it means that it ensures that all of the data is present and correct all the way through. Also, as you can imagine, vast reduction in training requirement because you're just following instructions as opposed to learning a process that is maybe a bit disjointed. So less staff training required, an easier process for the staff involved, and better quality, more consistent data being collected. Now that's just for starters. So I already mentioned that We can include people from outside of the organization in a workflow as well. And that's a major benefit because it reduces all of that back and forth that might otherwise be being done over the phone, over email, maybe using record forms or Google Forms. And it kind of removes the need often to duplicate effort as well. So kind of updating the CRM based on those things that are going on outside the organization is often a bit of work. Finally, I'd say the third major benefit of workflows is automation. So we've talked about how a workflow will guide people through a set of steps to ensure data's captured correctly. But for example, the workflow can be doing other things in the background automatically as well. So that might be sending emails, it might be inviting other people to complete part of a process, it might be connecting data together in the CRM and all sorts of other things. And we can include what we call decision logic in workflows too. And so that's where maybe somebody answered a particular question. And so we take somebody down one path or another in the workflow based on that.
Great. So you've kind of already mentioned a couple of things there, like emails and some of the other things that can be connected. But can you give us a kind of better sense of what workflows can do and what kinds of tasks they can help with?
Yeah, sure. So I've got some basic examples to talk through, and we've got a real world customer example as well. Okay, then. So let's have a look at an example. So we're going to start out really simple, and let's say that we want somebody to fill in a record form, and then we're going to show them a thank you message. So kind of as simple as it gets. We've just got two steps in our workflow. We've got the first step, which is complete record form. That then is going to add a record into the CRM. And then the second step is simply to display a message. So that would be a thank you message, thanking somebody for completing the form. So really, really simple, although at the moment this is, other than being able to customize the thank you message, this is nothing you couldn't do with just a standard record form share. So we'll look at making this a little bit more sophisticated. So we've added another step at the beginning here where we complete a person form. So this is something that we can only do with workflows. So in this case, somebody's going to complete a person form that's going to add that person's details to the CRM. Maybe this is somebody who is applying for something, an open call or a job application or whatever it might be. Then they're going to go ahead and complete that record form, and that record gets added to the CRM, and then we're going to display that message. Okay, so at the moment, the problem with this is that we are going to create that person, we're going to create that record, but those things aren't going to be connected together in the CRM. So we can add another element here. And this additional step that we've added, where I've used the kind of white steps with the broken lines, these are things that are actually happening in the background. So I mentioned that the workflows can do things in the background. So the person's going to complete the person form, it creates the person, they're going to complete the record, it's going to add that response to the record form. And then we're going to connect those two together so that when we're looking in the CRM, we can see that response linked to the person and vice versa. And then we'll display a thank you message. Okay, and we can add a few more of these background steps as well. So in this case, we are sending a confirmation email to the person after they've completed the form. That email is going to be added to that person's timeline, so we're going to be able to see that in the CRM that that's been sent. And we're also going to send a notification to the staff member that has kind of initiated this process too.
Brilliant, thank you. So those examples actually, like you said, would work quite well for a job application process or an application to an open call or another type of opportunity. So obviously an external person to your organization can use that workflow. So how would they actually start that process of entering their data?
Right, so yeah, I've glossed over that for simplicity. There are actually two ways an external person can start a workflow like this. So let's have a quick look at that. So things get a little bit more complex in this diagram. I thought let's start off simple and build this up. So what we've introduced here is the idea of stages. So we've got an internal stage, which is going to be used by the staff in your organization. And then we've got the external stage, which is going to be used by an applicant, let's say. And so the external stage is what we've already looked at. We're now adding this internal stage first. So two ways that we can do this. First of all, we can use a share or embed step. And so that is going to give you a link that you can share with an external person, or it allows you to embed this form onto your website. So that allows the member of staff to get that link and send it out however they wish, maybe add it onto the website or whatever they want to do, send it out in an email, etc. Then when somebody clicks on that link, an external person, they come into our external stage, and that's where they're going to go on and carry on with the steps of creating their profile, their record, and we do all the connections and things like that. And then the second way that we could initiate this looks quite similar, but rather than using a share link, we can actually invite somebody that already exists in our CRM. So we can add a step where we choose which person we want to invite. That person's going to be sent an email, and when they click on that, they'll be asked to fill in the person form, and so on and so forth. The big difference here, and one of the benefits of approaching it in this way, is that because we already know who the person is that we're sending this to, when they click on the link, rather than creating a new person's profile in the system when they fill that in, we can actually have it so it edits their existing profile. And so that person form that they're filling in can be pre-populated with their information. It's worth saying as well that these forms are kind of standard GoodCRM forms. So anything you can do in a person form in your CRM, pretty much anything you'd be able to use in a public context like this as well. And also, even if we've set up a workflow like this for you, although we need to do that setup, you'll still be able to go and edit these forms from time to time if you need to change them. So yeah.
Brilliant, thanks. Just a question about one of the stages. So you've mentioned that quite a lot that emails can be sent automatically when someone enters their information or fills in a form. How customizable are the emails that get sent? So can you choose from set templates, or can those be customized?
Yeah, absolutely. So yes, they can be customized. Those emails can be customized in two different ways. So we have a basic customization, I guess. So all those emails are going to adopt the standard template that would be set up in your CRM. In the most basic way, we can customize the text in that email with static text. So whatever you want that email to say, we can put that into the workflow. They can also be fully customized as well. So we might basically use a custom template for that email, and that can pull data in from the rest of the workflow thus far, or to confirm details that people have provided, or from other places in the CRM. So yeah, there's kind of a simple way and a more involved way from our side to set it up that is a bit more interactive and uses fields a bit like merge fields in MailChimp.
Yeah. Okay. Would you be able to show us an example that's kind of live and
Want to see a live demo
yeah.
in a oh, that sounds like a terrible idea, Steph. Yes, we can do that. So Leah, one of our developers, has kindly kind of put together a mock-up of the workflow that I've just gone through, actually. So what we have done for this demo is we've added a new menu item in our main menu at the top here. So when I hover over that, it says application form link. And so this is something that we will quite typically do when we're working with organizations to embed workflows. We might have new items in the main navigation, or maybe in the tools and settings section, we might add some new tools in there to kind of just link the CRM to these workflows. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click on the application form link. In the background, we're generating a new workflow. We call it a journey. And here we go. So the first step, we're using the share link option here. The first step that is used internally is going to be just to get that share link. One thing I'll mention here is that we could make this more of a tool. So the way that this is set up is that when this link is clicked on, somebody is taken to a specific person form and a specific record form to fill in. And that could be really useful in a one-off situation. But quite often we want to make this into a tool. And so we might have a step before this one where you actually choose which forms you want that person to fill in. We don't want to make this too complex, but we might have had a step here where we say, okay, this is the person form I want the person to fill in, and this is the record form that I want them to fill in. And that means you could use this for lots of different applications. So it could be for an open caller job app, whatever, and you can just customize the forms to suit. But we're keeping it simple today. We've just got a simple link. So I'm going to click on this link. So let's imagine that a member of staff has come and copied that link and maybe emailed it to me. And I've gone ahead and clicked on that link in the email. Another thing that's worth saying here is that these steps will all be branded based on your CRM's branding settings. So we'll have a nice background here, potentially your logo and that kind of thing. Okay, so the person's going to click into the workflow, and it's just asking us to complete a basic profile form. So I will go ahead and fill this in, and I'll call myself James Peach. There we go. I'm going to put an address in. And we've got our little postcode lookup tool that's going to fill my address in there. And I'm going to put an email in here. And a phone number. And I've got some marketing consents to fill in. So this is the form that's going to create James as a person in the CRM. So James clicks next. And again, it's going to take James to the next step in the processing. This is the record form. Nice and simple one. So education and training. Lots, we probably want some more words than that, but just for brevity, I'm going to put that in. And experience, none. We might, on this form, ask people to upload files. There might be lots of different options here. We're just keeping it nice and simple. Okay, and James is going to go ahead and click next, and that will complete the workflow. So in the background there, there will be a couple of emails being sent to the member of staff that initiated this workflow and to James as well. And if we go back into the CRM now, and we look at our people section, there we have James Peach at the top, and you'll notice that James has been tagged as an applicant. So that's another step that we actually put in that workflow. So we've told the workflow to tag this person with a particular tag. We can see that the information that James has entered into the person form has come through, and we can see on the timeline that that email has been sent to James with the confirmation text that we have put in the workflow there. And also we'll see that on the connections on the right-hand side, there is an application form linked to James. And when we click through, we're going to see that application there. Okay, so that is a kind of live example of the example I went through in the presentation.
Thanks, that's really helpful. I was wondering if you can tell us about any workflows that existing GoodCRM customers are actually using, just to give us a bit more of a flavour and some more examples.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've prepared an example for an organisation called Sector 3, which are actually just down the road from us in Stockport, so happens. I'm just going to share my screen again and we'll have a look at that together. Okay. So yeah, as I said, Sector 3, they're a support service for the third sector, basically. So they work with lots of organisations, giving advice and support of all sorts of different types. And so, like many other organizations, I suppose, that we work with, they really needed to track the work that they were doing so they could monitor and evaluate their impacts. They could report to funders and the council and things like that. So what we wanted was, as I say, a workflow to monitor and evaluate the support session. So the important thing was to record the support sessions that they run with these third sector organizations. They wanted to track the hours that were spent in those sessions, both in terms of hours spent with organizations, but also by their staff members as well. They wanted to track the different types of support given in those sessions, and also track goals and objectives and achievements for those organizations that they work with. So all of this would have actually been possible with an out-of-the-box solution. And actually, we always recommend that as a starting point. So quite typically with workflows, we'll have a conversation with a client and we'll talk about the requirements and we'll say, okay, this is how you could use the system out of the box to do this. And then we might talk about how we can improve on that to streamline things. So the out-of-the-box solution that we would have looked at for this would have been to use record forms to record those sessions, because we're able to connect that to the member of staff, to the organization that's receiving the support. We would track the goals and actions that were needed to happen on the organization's profile, so that we could always go back to that organization and see what the kind of latest requirement was. We would then expect staff to manually email those organizations, the contacts there, to say, these are the agreed actions. And also there's an element of needing to keep the contact for the organization and the organization details up to date, which would need to be done manually. So this is kind of what that would look like. And you can start to see where the gaps are. There's lots of moving around different parts of the system, as we said, looking at organizations, looking at people. There's emails that need to be sent externally, and we need to remember things like keeping contact details up to date. Okay. So how the workflow helps. The key points here are streamlining the process, ensuring all the data is captured, and automating processes too. So the workflow we've built basically helps to guide staff members step by step, so they're not having to, again, flip around different parts of the CRM. They just follow a set of steps, and that will keep the various different parts of the system updated as need be. And so as a consequence, first of all, it's not really a process that needs a lot of training, because, again, we're just following the instructions as we go through. And it does mean that things don't get missed. So because we're going to say, okay, now update the contact details, now update the organization details, now send the email, it means that we can't miss those elements of the process, and it makes sure that those things are happening every time. Finally, it's going to reduce the steps that take place outside of the system. So the system can send that email with the agreed next steps. That isn't something that the client needs to do manually anymore. Okay, so we're going to have a look at the workflow itself now. The first thing we've done, we've added another button, just like we did with the live example I showed you a moment ago. So when a member of staff at Sector 3 clicks on this button, it's going to start the process of recording a support session. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to select the member of staff that's running the session. We're going to select the organization that's receiving the support and the lead contact for that organization that is present in this session. Then it's going to make sure that that lead contact, we have the minimum contact details that we need in place. And so we're using required fields in this form to make sure that we can't progress without that data being there. Then we're going to make sure the organization's details are up to date. And one thing that we need to do at this stage is make sure that there is a relationship manager attached to this organization, because that's needed for this type of organization. So again, that's an opportunity for us just to make sure we've got all the information that we need. Okay, now Sector 3 do an actions review. So what this does is it looks at the actions that have been completed in the past and the actions that have been agreed that are to do, And it's an opportunity to speak to the organization and say, right, has there been any progress? And they can move these things around as necessary to update the details. And again, that is then stored on the organization's profile. And this is where we start recording the actual session itself. So we're going to make notes about the session. So the kind of support that was given, for example, the type of session, the support types provided, and again, any actions that have been agreed during the session. We're then going to do an actions review again. So it might be that some things have been ticked off during the session. So we get to update that, and we've got some new actions here as a result of the conversations that have been had. Okay, and this is the point that the system sends an email to the lead contact of the organization, just confirming those actions that have been agreed. So by bringing this step into the workflow, it can't be forgotten. And also notice that unlike the email examples we looked at in the previous live demo that I did, where those emails were sent off in the background, in this case, we've got the option to actually allow the member of staff to customize this email. And that means that they can make it a bit more personal. They can add any important notes that maybe you might not have thought of if you were just planning this out in a rigid system. But it does make sure that this happens and gets sent. Okay. Finally, we record the outcomes, any outcomes of the support that we might have hit during this session, and we also record the hours spent too. There is then one last step where all of the data that's been submitted are reviewed. And if we scroll down to the bottom of that form, we've got some details here about the next appointment that gets sent. An interesting thing here is that there will be times when there are processes that still need to happen outside of the CRM. It's either something the CRM can't do for whatever reason, it's something that would be really expensive to embed into a workflow, and it's not enough of a time saving. But what we can do is we can use the CRM to check whether things have been done externally. So in this case, we've got a little tick box to say that a reminder has been sent for the next appointment. Now, in this case, that's an optional tick box because we discussed with the client and they said they're not always going to have been able to book that appointment by now. It might be something that happens later, but we still need to be able to see where we've got missing appointments. So we want that tick box. But we could have made this a mandatory field, a required field as well, which would mean that you couldn't progress until you've confirmed certain things. So it depends on what you're trying to achieve, but you could have actions that you need people to do externally, and you need them to say these have been done before they move forward. Okay, and then the staff member will click confirm and submit to finalize this, and they have then ended the workflow. Just a little point, this might be a little bit nerdy, but if we go back, you'll see the menu on the left-hand side. These are all the steps that we've gone through, and you'll see that they're blue because they're linked. So at any point during this workflow, we can go back to previous steps in order to make changes or whatever it might be. But when we've clicked the confirm and submit, you'll see that those links now disappear. We can still see the steps we've gone through. However, we can't edit them any further. Okay, so I'm just going to talk, that's the workflow itself. I'm just going to talk a little bit about some of the things that the client then needs as a result of the data that's captured by the workflow. So first of all, this is our organization that we're using as an example in this workflow. And we can see that the organization profile shows the actions that we've updated, and we can see the relationship manager on there as well. We can also see in the record form around the sessions that this session has been added into that record form with all of the details that we need. And from those records, we can then look at reports. So we've got a huge amount of detailed data that we can now report on, and we can also break this down in different ways. So here we can see total hours spent across all of the sessions and the average number of hours spent on a session. And we can start to see the various support outcomes and how they break down across the whole data set. Now, in reality, you won't often be looking at the whole data set. You'll want to narrow down on specifics. So, for example, we could look at the support given to a specific organization. And so here we've filtered by the organization we were just looking at, and we can see this is the support that they've received. So they've had 2 support sessions, a total of 4 hours, and it's all been about funding, and there's been a different split of support types given, and so on and so forth, and various support outcomes as well. Or we might decide we want to narrow in not on the organization, but maybe on a staff member. So how many hours is a staff member added in? Now, Tom, who's filled this in, is a bit new and has only done these 2 sessions as well, so the stats look quite similar. But you can, with the records tool, and this is all standard stuff, this isn't just workflow dependent, you have any tag fields, connection fields, and things like that, you can always filter the statistics. So I suppose the workflow is getting all of that data organized in the right way, consistently, and in a process that's easy to follow, and then you get all of those reporting benefits as a consequence.
Really great, thank you. I've just had a question in the chat. Siobhan from Resource Productions asks, can this workflow be used for support sessions with people as well?
Yeah, absolutely. If there's one take home today, it is this, that we're looking at examples here. Workflows are completely flexible. If we want to work with people, organizations, events, projects, in any combination, in any mixture, record forms, it's all completely possible. So yeah, these are very much just examples. Don't feel like we're showing you everything workflows can do today. This is very much the tip of the iceberg. So yes, if you wanted to, I suppose, revolve this whole workflow around people rather than organizations, or indeed record something completely different from support sessions, everything is really possible. So yeah, I'm hoping that today's session kind of opens your eyes to the possibilities. And then I'd really recommend that if there's something you think we can help with, even if you're not sure workflows are the solution, do just drop us a line and we can have a conversation, because, as I say, incredibly flexible.
Great, thanks. So big question here. What do they cost?
Yes, the $64 million question, in fact, although they're
Hopefully not that.
quite that expensive yet. No, I have to make that joke every time. Sorry. Yeah, so look, of course, the price varies. This is an incredibly flexible thing. It is bespoke, in so much as, we are going to tailor this around your specific organizational needs. And that said, it's a lot more cost effective than bespoke software development. So if you came to us and said, right, I need you to build me a brand new feature in the CRM, that's going to be, disproportionately expensive compared to workflows. Workflows, we do have this whole infrastructure available that we can tap into so that we can rapidly develop these things, and that brings the costs down. So look, we're going to sit down with you, we're going to understand your requirements, we're going to sketch out a solution, we're going to give you a ballpark, we're going to need to consider complexity, training needs, documentation needs, maybe custom templates. So I mentioned that we can customize those email templates, we can add buttons into your CRM, we can do other things than that, and so on. So it will really depend. But that said, our cheapest workflows start from less than £500 typically. And as you can imagine, for much more advanced ones, the cost will increase. So yeah, it's really a case of letting us know what the requirements are. We'll give you a ballpark, no obligation, and you can see, I think what we're always trying to do is we're trying to find the best balance between cost and benefit. We're not going to, a bit like the appointment scheduling, we're not going to put it into the workflow if it's going to cost you money and it's not going to provide the benefit. We're going to look at what time can we save you, how we can improve your data collection, how we can make your CRM work harder for you. Then we can identify where it's worth that investment for workflows.
Tom, just to check, that's a one-off cost to create that workflow.
Absolutely. So these are setup costs. It's all that discussion, understanding requirements, building out the initial workflow, that's a one-off cost. It's an interesting question though, Steph, because it kind of plays into what I was talking about before when we were looking at the live example, where you make a decision as to whether you build this to do one thing or you build it as a tool. And so building it as a tool will typically involve a few more steps so that you can configure it, the workflow, for different uses each time. So if we omitted those steps that allowed us to configure the workflow, and then you needed to use it in a slightly different scenario, then we might need to charge you again to adapt it. However, if we think about that from the beginning and say, okay, how can we make this as flexible as possible? There might be a bit more setup fee involved in that initial stage, but then it will be so much more useful going forward, and there won't be any additional ongoing costs.
Great. So can you just confirm that you were just saying that a very simple one would be around £500? So we're talking about hundreds, not thousands.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, you can pay thousands, but yeah, our most affordable workflows, really simple workflows, typically are less than £500.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to actually just move on now, because I know that a lot of people are really interested to hear more about GoodCRM tickets and where that's up to. Could you give us an update?
Yeah, you're going to, if you start using tickets, you're going to get your own tickets portal. So it's going to be branded for you, for your organization. And then people can use that portal to register for tickets, for events. And of course, we've got things like, the people that register will get profiles in the CRM automatically. We'll recognize existing contacts, so we won't create duplicates and all that kind of thing. So this is all about tickets, or allowing people to register for activity of different sorts. Okay, so it's going to be useful for lots of different types of events and registrations. You're going to be able to manage ticket capacities. So if you've got, limited capacity, you can set those limits. We have different formats for our ticketed events. So it might just be single day events. It might be multi-day events where people can choose which of the days they want to go to, or it might be series events. So that might be, for example, a series of workshops, or a group that meets regularly, or something like that. You don't have to charge for these events, but you can charge through the CRM. We don't charge anything for free tickets ever. So if you've got free events, you will be able to list those, and there will be no charges. We do charge a really low booking fee of 20 pence per ticket for paid events. And that's a real industry leading low price, which is exclusively for GoodCRM customers. We might use the ticketing functionality as a standalone in the future, and the prices won't be as low as that. It is worth saying that VAT Stripe fees apply to this as well, just to read the small print there. So I think one of the key things that we focused on with tickets is data capture. So I guess all of that flexibility that you're used to within GoodCRM when it comes to forms, you're going to be able to leverage within the ticket booking process. So you can determine the data that you want to capture about the profile for the person purchasing tickets, but also profiles for maybe participants that somebody's buying tickets for. And you can collect, as well as person profile data that will link to the person's profile in the CRM. You can collect record forms, so monitoring baseline data, consents, that kind of thing. So this is a real game changer, and I think that this is the main driver for us in developing tickets, is because there are loads of different platforms out there that you can use for this kind of thing, but they tend to fall down when it comes to that data capture piece. That's the thing that is really important. And obviously there are benefits like all of this data being captured automatically into your CRM. We are in what we call private beta at the moment, which is a little bit geeky, maybe. That just means that we're only using tickets with a small number of clients at the moment, and that's whilst we finish off all the features. We learn from how it's used. We improve it. And that has, until very recently, that's been only for organizations that are going to incorporate tickets into maybe workflows or bigger pieces of work. And I've got some updates on some examples of that in a moment. But we are now opening up the private beta to any GoodCRM clients, and that early access is available now. So with that, there is a one-off setup fee of £399 to join the private beta, but we do give you a £400 booking fee credit towards those 20 pence per ticket bookings as part of that early access. So if that's something that is really of interest to you, do get in touch. But we will be rolling this out into a public beta and then as a full product in coming months. But I know there are lots of people that are maybe trying to move away from Eventbrite since they changed their pricing and this, that, and the other. So at the moment, it's a bit of work for us to get this deployed onto your account. That's why there is a setup fee. We're trying to offset that with the booking fee credits. So do let us know if that is of interest to you. Finally, on tickets, I did say that I was going to just update you on some of the projects that we're working on with tickets at the moment in private beta. So we're actually doing some really interesting things at the moment with London Youth Choirs, for example, who are using the ticket platform to book for people to book onto auditions. So this might
We've
be
got a couple of LYC.
We've got a couple of LYC people in the house. Hello, good to see you. So looking at using this for choir auditions, but also we've done a nifty little mashup with our memberships functionality as well, so that people can manage memberships as well as profiles and things in the same portal. Then we're also working with National Youth Theatre, who are using the tickets platform for booking accommodation for their current cohorts. And we're doing a project with them that's going to be really great, which is about integrating it with their website so that we've removed the registration step for people that are already registered with their website. So all of that's really exciting. We're working with quite a few other people in this area as well, but I just wanted to give people a sense of the kinds of things that are going on with tickets at the moment.